3. Hello everybody. In previous videos we've looked at layers in Photoshop. You'll find your layers here. Currently I have no layers in here, I only have my background. But to add a layer, I'll simply click on this button here. And then once I have that layer, I can of course draw on it. I can add additional layers, which then I can also draw on. And then very importantly, I can hide or unhide my layers as well as reorganize them simply by dragging them. In this video, we're going to take a little bit more of a look at things that we can do with layers. We're going to look at layer styles. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of these two layers here. I think for my background, I'm going to go ahead and drop this color in here. I'll create a new layer and I will draw on it. Nothing in particular, just a couple marks just to see what we can do. And we'll check out layer styles. So what I'm going to do is come over to my layer and double click on it. And I'll get this pop-up for layer styles with a bunch of options here for blending options, bevel and emboss, and so on. We'll take a look at a few of these examples here. Let's take a look at the bevel and emboss, the bevel and emboss at the top. If I want to activate that, I'll simply click on the checkbox here. And what that will do is add a bevel to my current layer. And you can see the effect that we're getting now. It makes it look like, in this case, that these marks have been indented into the background. I'm going to select Bevel and Emboss here and we'll take a look at a couple of its settings here and how we can adjust them. So if we take a look at the top, you can see that there's the style and we've got our outer bevel or inner bevel, emboss, pillow emboss, and shade emboss, which in this case doesn't really have much of an effect. We're going to keep it simple and we'll just go with the outer bevel for now and see what we can do with that. So we got the outer bevel on. We've got our technique of chisel hard, smooth, or chisel soft as well. So use the setting that gives you the effect that you want. We've got this property here of depth, and currently I have it set to a very high number, so I'm just going to scale that down. You can see the effect that that's having on it. It just makes it, in this case, a little less pronounced. We've got our direction here. Currently it's set to down, so it makes it look like it's indented in. If we change that to up, it should look like it's embossed or it's coming out. Now, that really is simply where is the light coming from, okay? If I put it back on down, that's really the only cue that gives us the illusion of this being indented in is that the shadows are on the top here and we've got the light on the bottom, indicating or implying that the light is coming from above. But we can change that. We can change that by going to the angle here because that indicates where the light's coming from. So if we were to just take that angle and move it down to the bottom, for instance, you'll see that that ends up looking as if it were set to up rather than down. So really the up down is just an indication of, with the assumption that the light is coming from above, where the shadows and the highlights are. But the key thing from that, the key takeaway is that you can change the direction of the light by adjusting the angle. We can adjust the size of our emboss here. make it bigger or smaller. And we can soften or harden the effect as well. In addition, there are some other properties that you can take a look at, such as the highlight mode. Right now, the highlight is set to white, which is why we've got these white highlights. And then the shadow mode is set to black, which is why we have the shadows looking as they are. But you can, of course, change those. So if instead of a white highlight, I want something that has more of a color to it, we can adjust it like that. Give it maybe more of a green color, for instance, if we want, for the highlight. Or maybe the shadow, maybe we want to adjust that. Give it more of a red color, just as an example. When you're done creating your layer style, of course, you can just press OK. And now the layer style will be applied to your layer. Now check this out. If I have my layer selected and I draw on it some more, that effect is still applied to it. Or if I were to erase areas, you can see that this is a very nice way of working because it's been applied to the layer. And we can still continue to fine tune and adjust and get it to do what we want it to do. Now, if I want to continue working not on, let's say, the layer itself where I'm drawing on the layer, but rather on the layer style, I can simply come back over here and double click and it'll open up the layer style once again, where I can come in here and further fine tune the effect that I want. Let's go ahead and take a look at a couple. I'm not going to go into detail with all of these different layer styles. My recommendation really is to just have fun with them and play with them and see what they do. You can combine these different layer styles too. I should mention that. I'm going to go ahead and uncheck the Bevel and Emboss. This is what I actually have on my layer, and we'll take a look at a couple more of these different layer styles. Let's take a look at Stroke. And what you can see is that stroke simply puts a stroke around what you draw. We can, of course, make adjustments to that and perhaps bring the size in. We can tell it the position. Right now it's set to center, but maybe we want it on the outer part of our drawing, or maybe we want it on the inside of our drawing, and we can set that. I'm going to set it back to center here. We can adjust its opacity. And of course, we can change its color. Let's take a look at another layer style. I'm going to uncheck the stroke so that we're not seeing that anymore. And we can take a quick look at outer glow. You'll see what that does. Again, you have different properties regarding the color, the spread, the size, and so on. So you can adjust that glow if you wish. And then another fun one is the drop shadow. And you can see what that's doing. That's making these marks that I've created on here look like they're floating above the surface. Again, if we select the actual style here, we can come in here and we can change where the light is coming from. We can, of course, also change the distance if we need to, the spread, the size. If we want to soften the shadows, for instance, or make them very hard edged, we can do that. There are a lot of different properties. Noise, you can add noise to it if you wish. Very customizable. And of course, you can also change the color of your shadow if you wish. Something else that's worth mentioning is that if I create another layer, which doesn't have the layer style on it, of course, if I were to start drawing on that layer, maybe I'll draw this one as a different color, just so that you can see this a little better. Oh, I'm using my erase tool. It would help if I selected my brush tool. Uh, so if I draw on this layer, which doesn't have a layer style on it, what I want to demonstrate to you is that I could come over to my layer with the layer style, right click on it, and I can copy the layer style, and then I can select other layers and paste the layer style on them. So this is an easy way of taking a layer style that you like and applying it to, after you put that work into it, applying the style to other layers as well. One other thing I should mention before wrapping up this video uh, is that there are additional layer styles that you might not see available when you go to your layer styles. To demonstrate, let me go ahead and just draw on this layer. Open up my layer styles, and what I'd like to show you is that these are not the only options necessarily. If you click on this effects button, you may see other options as well that you can also add to your list here. So in this case, if I wish to add the satin layer, I can do so. And then with that selected, I can come in here and I can adjust the properties of it. So have fun playing with layer styles, and I'll see you next time.